The rain on Kethra station never stopped. It tapped softly against the metal roofs and echoed through the endless corridors of the docking district. The sound blended with the low hum of engines and the distant roar of departing ships. Most travelers barely noticed it, but a small alien girl sitting beside Cargo Bay 12 heard every drop. Her name was Lyra. She was Vayari, a species known across the outer systems for being quiet, fragile, and easy to ignore. Her silver eyes reflected the flickering lights of the station while she hugged her thin knees and tried to stay warm. Lyra had been living on Kethra station for 3 cycles, not by choice. Her home world had once been a mining colony. When the mines ran dry, the corporations packed their machines and left entire cities emptied. Within months, the Vayari people had nowhere to go. Many disappeared into space, hoping to find work. Lyra had lost her parents during the evacuation chaos. She barely remembered the journey that brought her to the station, hidden inside a cargo container, but she remembered the hunger. Kethra station was massive, but it had no place for someone like her. The authorities only cared about merchants and registered workers. Refugees were pushed into the lower markets where survival depended on luck. Lyra worked whenever she could. She cleaned tables at food stalls. She carried crates for mechanics sometimes. She spent entire days searching the docks for someone willing to pay a few credits for help, but work never lasted, and the station boss had already warned her no papers meant no future. Tonight, she sat beside the cargo doors, watching ships leave through the observation window high above the docking bay. Every ship carried people with plans, destinations, families. Lyra had none. Her stomach growled, but she ignored it. She had learned long ago that hunger was easier than hope. Footsteps echoed across the docking bay. A group of traders passed by, laughing loudly. None of them noticed the small Vayari girl sitting against the wall. Then another sound broke, the quiet, a ship engine powering down. Lyra glanced toward the center of the bay. A small transport vessel had just landed. Its hull was scratched and worn, but the engine sounded strong. The side ramp lowered slowly with a loud mechanical hiss. A tall human stepped out. Humans were rare in this sector. This one wore a faded flight jacket and heavy boots that carried the dust of many worlds. A helmet rested under his arm while he scanned the docking bay with sharp eyes. His gaze stopped when he noticed the small figure beside the cargo door. He walked closer. "Hey kid." Lyra quickly stood up. "I am sorry," she said quietly. "I will move." The human raised an eyebrow. "Move where?" She hesitated. "Anywhere else." The human studied her for a moment. "You working here? Sometimes is not a job." Lyra looked down at the floor. "I tried." The human glanced at the empty bag beside her. "You got family on this station? No friends?" She shook her head. The human sighed slowly. "Tough galaxy." He looked back toward his ship, then at her again. "You hungry?" Lyra blinked in surprise. "Yes." "Good answer." He gestured toward the ship. "Come on." Lyra hesitated, only for a moment, before following him inside the transport ship. Everything looked organized, and warm tools were secured neatly along the walls, and the cockpit glowed with soft, yellow lights. The human opened a storage locker and tossed her a wrapped ration pack. "Eat." Lyra opened it quickly and began eating while trying not to look desperate. The human leaned against the console, watching her. "Name?" "Lyra." "I am Mason, captain of this old flying crate." Lyra looked around the ship. "It is beautiful." Mason laughed loudly. "Kid, you need to see more ships." She finished the meal slowly, while warmth returned to her body. Mason crossed his arms. "So what is your plan?" "Plan? Yeah, the thing people use to keep living." Lyra stared at the floor. "I do not have one." Mason nodded slowly. "You know what humans are famous for out here?" She shook her head. "Fixing things, broken engines, broken colonies, broken plans. Humans are stubborn." He looked at her again. "You look like something the galaxy tried to throw away." Lyra stayed silent. "But I do not like wasted Potential, Mason said. He pointed at a maintenance panel inside the ship. I need help sometimes. Someone small enough to crawl inside systems when they jam. He looked directly at her. You interested? Lyra froze me. Sure, why not, but I have no training. Training can be taught, Mason said. What matters is stubbornness. You survived alone on this station for 3 cycles. That tells me enough. Lyra felt something unfamiliar rising inside her chest. Why would you help me? Mason shrugged. Someone helped me once. He walked toward the cockpit. Decision time. Kid, stay here guarding floors, or come see what the galaxy actually looks like. Lyra looked at the open ramp, then at the endless ships beyond the docking bay. For the first time since losing her family, she felt hope. She picked up her small bag. I will fly, Mason smiled. Good choice, partner. The ship launched from Kethra Station that same night. Stars stretched across the cockpit window as the transport entered open space. Lyra stared in silent wonder. She had never seen the galaxy like this. Endless, bright, alive. Mason pointed at the control console. Lesson 1. Never trust autopilot near pirate space. Lyra listened carefully, absorbing every detail. Days passed, then weeks. Mason taught her everything he knew: navigation, engine repair, cargo negotiation, emergency survival. Lyra learned quickly. Her small hands could reach places most mechanics could not. Her memory was sharp and her curiosity endless. For the first time in her life, she felt useful. Months later, their ship approached a frontier colony. Something was wrong. Smoke rose from several buildings and distress signals filled the communication channels. Mason checked the sensors, radars. The colony defense grid was offline, and evacuation ships were trapped on the ground. Lyra studied the display. Power relay tower damaged, she said quickly. Mason glanced at her. You sure? Yes, he grinned. Then we fix it. They flew straight through enemy fire and landed beside the damaged power tower. Explosions echoed across the colony while raider ships circled above. Mason grabbed his helmet. Stay close. They ran toward the tower while blaster fire lit the sky. Inside the relay structure, the main conduit had melted. Lyra crawled into the narrow maintenance shaft while Mason guarded the entrance. Smoke burned her eyes, but she kept moving. Finally, she reached the broken connection. Her hands moved quickly, reconnecting wires and replacing a damaged fuse. Outside, another explosion shook the tower. Mason shouted, "Any time now, partner." Lyra tightened the final connector. Power surged through the grid moments later. Massive defense cannons activated across the colony. Bright beams shot into the sky. Raider ships scattered in panic. Within minutes, they fled into deep space. The colony was safe. Later, the colonists gathered around Mason and Lyra, cheering loudly. Mason placed a hand on her shoulder. Not bad for someone with no future. Lyra looked up at the stars, the same stars she once watched from a cold cargo bay floor. But everything had changed. She was no longer invisible, no longer forgotten. She was a pilot, a mechanic, a hero. And beside her stood the stubborn human who refused to let the galaxy throw her away. Lyra smiled softly. Her future was no longer empty. It was as wide as the stars.